A VLAN access list, and I like to call them VLAN access control list to be very specific, because we do call them VACLs. Where's the C coming from? Control. A VACL allows us to filter traffic within a VLAN. You can also apply it to a multi-layer switch, and it's less applicable. I wouldn't typically use it there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do it on an access layer switch. Focus on that. And I want to say I don't want this certain protocol to communicate through this VLAN. Now, if I have a different need, and I just want to compare and contrast this for a moment. If you wanted to say, I only want these two clients to communicate, and maybe the tablet computers to communicate, but allow them to communicate up to their default gateway, there's another feature that's better suited for that. Now, you can use VACLs for this purpose, but the other feature that I'm mentioning is private VLANs. So I wouldn't say that it's best used for grouping devices together. It's best used for disallowing a protocol to communicate inside of a VLAN. That's what I like to use it for. Okay? How do you identify the protocol? You're going to build what is called a VLAN access map, which is going to reference access control lists, like your MAC access lists, which I wouldn't use it for, or an extended access list, which is what I'm going to expect to build. You can filter using any of the usual access lists, IPv4, standard or extended, IPv6, or MAC access lists. One last thing. It does say that we can set these up on a multi-layer switch. I find it much more applicable on layer 2 switches. Let me show you what happens if you apply it to a layer 2 switch or a layer 3 switch that is doing routing. Now, the typical environment where we use a VACL is on a layer 2 switch that is bridging our traffic, meaning it's not leaving its VLAN. It's going from one port in that VLAN to another. It happens after a VACL, which again might just filter, I don't want to allow that source MAC address, or I don't want to allow that source IP address for spoof mitigation. But once it passes that check, assuming it does, then the VACL will be applied. And it's kind of internal to the switch. You don't want to think that it's applied inbound on a port or outbound on a port. It's just anything going through this VLAN is going to have to pass muster. It's going to have to pass the test. It's going to have to be explicitly forwarded instead of dropped. Those are the two actions that we are typically going to take. Now, if we happen to do this on a multi-layer switch, the VACL happens before the access list. But I would caution you, a VACL is best used for bridged traffic as opposed to routed traffic. If I know that people need to have a filtering task for traffic from VLAN 10 to VLAN 20, I would not expect to look and see this on a VACL. I'm going to do like a show IP access list and then look at the SVIs and see which access groups are applied. I'm not going to be looking for the VLAN access maps, and I'm not alone. If you configure a VACL on a multi-layer switch for traffic from one VLAN to another, you're going to confuse a lot of people, and you're going to make your life a lot more difficult, because these are harder to work with than VACLs. And I think you'd agree once you get a mastery of the configuration.